This video is sponsored by CuriosityStream. Get access to my streaming video service Nebula when you sign up for CuriosityStream using the link in the description.
And so I went into the room with the two professors, and I didn't know any theory. I didn't play any jazz or I barely knew scales. I knew some major scales, but I'd always learned by ear. It was such a rude awakening to I thought I was good at guitar, and then they're like, no, you're a complete beginner. Tuesday talks.
I grew up, thousands of miles away from you, and you are playing bluegrass and then a little English girl over here. It was so exotic, and it kind of felt like it's all I wanted to listen to and play or learn how to play, but I didn't quite have the right people around me who understood anything. So luckily my mum introduced me to Alison Krauss and Nickel Creek, but I would love to hear your whole bluegrass journey along, with your dad and your family band and just how it all started.
Yeah, totally. Well, my dad grew up on a farm in Illinois, and my grandfather was a banjo player. So he discovered the music really just kind of organically through his dad, who liked to listen to the Grand Ole Opry. And there was one banjo player in the tiny town they were in Illinois. It was just a farm town, basically. So my grandfather would take lessons from this guy in town who played banjo, and then my dad kind of picked up guitar and fiddle and mandolin as he grew up. And he plays banjo as well. And then he moved out to California he was going to work in finance, actually, and stumbled into a little music store in Palo Alto where I grew up. And they had a banjo teacher teaching out of the music store who had just quit. And my dad went into the store, and he was just kind of playing around on different instruments. And they were like, hey, we need a new banjo teacher here, and you sound pretty good. Why don't you start teaching some private lessons? So he started it, and it ended up becoming his whole career. Basically, he had a total shift into doing music professionally as a private music teacher. So then when I was growing up, there was just music all the time. There were bluegrass jams at our house, and we were always listening to music, and I always heard my dad playing, and I just kind of grew up around it. So when I was 8, I had tried a couple other instruments, and I finally asked for a guitar, and that's what really stuck with me. I loved that I could play chords and sing and also learn tunes, and it was so fun. And then once I started going to bluegrass jams and festivals and meeting people my own age who liked that style of music, I became hooked on it.
Do you think that was his plan all along, to give you other instruments and then just let you find your own way rather than him pushing you to do it? Because I've seen so many kids have pushy musical parents, but my parents weren't musical, but they loved music. And so when I was like, I want to play instruments, they were like, okay, go on then. So is that the way you sort of came round to guitar, or?
Yeah, it was kind of this thing. I don't think my parents expected me to be a musician or anything, but I was always just so taken with music, and they were super encouraging, but never really pushy. When I was a teenager and was getting more serious about it, and I think I want to go to music school and I want to become a professional musician, that's when my dad especially was like, well, you need to be really serious about it. He wasn't pushy, but he was kind of like, this is a big decision. You need to make sure you're dedicated. So, but as a kid, I was never pushed into playing.
Did you start out on banjo, or was it just that your dad, having played banjo, kind of introduced you to claw hammer and all those techniques that I have no idea about, really? I'm not going to pretend like I know.
Yeah, I started on guitar, and then I wanted to play banjo after I'd been playing guitar for a couple of years. I thought it sounded fun to learn banjo. So my dad showed me 3-finger style, and then he doesn't actually play clawhammer, so I learned clawhammer playing from just someone else in the Bay Area. I had a clawhammer banjo teacher who I saw a couple times and just learned the technique of it. But banjo has always come second to playing guitar.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so I'm trying to picture the clawhammer on electric guitar.
Oh, I've probably tried clawhammer on electric guitar, but I can't remember effort. I can't remember ever trying it on electric, but people are always telling me I should, and to me that just doesn't, those two things don't go together in my mind. I'll have to film a little video of it and send it to you sometime.
Definitely.
See if it works.
Oh my God, definitely. I heard when you went to Berkeley that you did this audition where they grade you. And can you tell us that story? Because I think that's amazing. It's just so hilarious to me that I'm like gawking at your playing now, and then you have this story.
Yeah, it's called, I can't remember what exactly it's called. I think it's called ratings audition, where you go in and there's like 5 categories. You get 1 through 5 maybe. But they give you a number for each thing. It's like technique, improvising. I don't remember all the things, but I went in for my ratings audition, and you've already gotten into Berkeley at that point. It's like the beginning of semester 1 that they do it. And so I went into the room with the 2 professors, and I didn't know any theory. I didn't play any jazz, or like I barely knew scales. I knew like some major scales, but I'd always learned by ear. They were like, play a C major 7 chord, and I was like, I don't know what that is. And they were like, play a Lydian whatever scale, and I had never even heard of like modes or anything. And each question I was just like stumped by, basically. And then they were like, play a piece of music that you like to play, and I think I played some bluegrass piece where I was like playing fast guitar, bluegrass guitar, and they didn't really seem very into that either.
Oh, right, okay.
So I got my paper back, and it was all 1s, which is the lowest possible. And I didn't know, and like after I had been through Berkeley, I went for 2.5 years. I had never met anyone else who got all 1s at their ratings auditions, but luckily I took it in. You had to like hand it in to the guitar department head, and he saw mine, and he had somehow heard who I was through another teacher maybe in the bluegrass program, and he was like, this doesn't seem right, why don't you come and like sit with me for a second and play like what you played for them. And so he bumped up my ratings a little bit, so it wasn't all 1s in the end, but I was still so crushed, and it was such like a rude awakening to I thought I was good at guitar, and then they were like, no, you're a complete beginner.
You see, I still think I'm getting 1s every single time.
I still feel like that too.
But I think, it's also like, if we want to be doing this till we're 90, then we can't be experts right now. I mean, you're way ahead of me, but like, there has to be some progression. And I think people, maybe there is this illusion that you kind of have to have it all together, like immediately within 10 years of learning. And it's like, it's a lifelong thing. Like once you crack bluegrass and you feel confident in that, then like if you turn to jazz, then that would be a whole other scary thing of it's just a different language, and you kind of have to just take a deep breath. Do you find that you get fired up after those sorts of things? Like maybe there's a period of time where you're a bit, disheartened, but surely it must sort of like stoke you a bit and just be like, right, okay, I've got to work harder at this. I've got to practice more and, show them up.
Yeah. Keep working hard and like work even harder than I was before, and fill in these gaps that I didn't even know that I had. So I think just feeling like a beginner perpetually isn't necessarily a bad thing. It can help you keep learning as long as you're not taking it too hard and letting it discourage you too much.
Yeah, exactly. Where do you want to go from here? Like, where do you go next, and what sort of things are you thinking about?
Yeah, I'm thinking about albums primarily. Like, I'd love to... I feel like I haven't really made a full-on bluegrass album exactly like I'd want to. I think my albums that I've made, like my EP and my first album, kind of combine bluegrass elements with other things. I'd love to just do a straight-ahead bluegrass album. I'd love to have, like, that be one project that I focus on, and then have another side to what I do that's super different from that and not bluegrass. So I just kind of want to make a more clear statement of, like, here's my bluegrass music, here's this other music that I love to do, and have them both kind of go into who I am as a musician, as a person. The other thing that's been really fun is I have an autoimmune disease called alopecia, so I wear wigs. It's a hair loss disease that I've had since I was a kid, so I've gotten a lot of new wigs during quarantine, and that's been a fun thing to experiment with. So that's another thing I want to do when I go back to touring, is just like wear a different hair every night if I want to without my wig. And that was just something I was so in my routine with performing that I never even really thought about that. But I just think playing with things like that and playing with electric guitar, like playing a lot of different guitars in my show, that's something I never really had the time to work out before, but is something that I find really exciting and inspiring.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear this new record whenever you get in the studio.
Oh, thanks.
And I know that people will hound me for not asking those, so I've got to ask about your guitar practice routine. Do you have one, or do you just play, or do you focus on writing? How are you taking this time at the moment to improve on the guitar?
Yeah, these days I'm just working on writing mainly. I've been learning new songs in different genres and styles. I did some live streams in the fall that I practiced a lot for, where each one had a theme. There was like one that was all protest songs and one that were all songs from the Bay Area where I grew up, and so I tried to pick songs from a bunch of different genres, and that was a really fun thing to practice, just learning all these different styles. And I played some electric for that, which was a challenge, but it was really fun. So I had a good practice going for that, and I feel like I learned a lot. These days I'm mainly focusing on writing, and I kind of wish I had a better guitar practice routine at the moment, but that's not totally where my attention is right now. When I teach lessons and talk about practicing, I like to talk about having like different parts to your practice. Like I always like to have one part where I'm kind of doing more like left brain stuff, like scales and drilling arpeggios or chords, or doing exercises to improve my technique, and then maybe having another segment where you learn someone's guitar solo or learn a new song, and then a third segment that's super creative where you like write a guitar piece or write a song or learn to improvise over a new chord progression. So I always like to talk about having a well-rounded practice routine.
I mean, that's great advice, and that's something I need to focus on more, because sometimes I find I get in my head about it. I'm like, right, okay, I just need to focus on all the things that I've neglected for however long, whether it's scales, technique, anything. And then I get totally distracted, and then I beat myself up about it, because I'll find something and I'll be like, that's kind of cool. I might just write something with that. And then I, spend an hour working on it. I'm like, wait, I didn't actually achieve anything that I set out to. But then ultimately the goal is to become a better songwriter and musician that way too, and always be creating new things. And I do think that sort of having those sections is so great, because if you want to be a guitarist, you kind of have to be able to write now to make your mark. You can't just be just a guitarist and then just doing covers all the time of other people's music. So totally. I mean, that's great advice. I'm going to take that, and I'm going to but honestly, it was so nice to meet you, and
so good to meet you,
thank you for your time. At the beginning of this video, I mentioned Nebula, my amazing streaming platform, which is where I'm hosting exclusive and ad-free videos alongside other YouTube creators you might recognize. Let me just show you what my channel looks like as I upload extended versions of my Tuesday Talks interviews, as they can be pretty long and in-depth, and that wouldn't quite work on YouTube. So you can see my conversations with Cory Wong, Tomo Fujita, Molly Tuttle, and Josh Turner. Then I've made Nebula exclusive videos, my most recent being the behind the scenes of the Cabin Fever EP, which, if you haven't checked it out, is a rather light-hearted and fun 25-minute vlog with acoustic performances of 3 original tunes plus so much more. There's a lot to dive into over on my Nebula channel. So the best way to access Nebula is to sign up to a subscription for CuriosityStream, who are very kindly sponsoring this video. If you aren't already aware, CuriosityStream is the best place on the internet to see thousands of the world's finest documentaries and non-fiction titles. It is the biggest documentary streaming subscription platform, founded by John Hendricks, who also founded the Discovery Channel. My documentary pick is Rise, the story of Augustines. It's a very candid and very moving documentary that reveals how William McCarthy and his bandmates overcame some truly dark times to become one of the most celebrated independent bands in the world. I can't recommend it enough. It really floored me. We worked out a deal that if you sign up for CuriosityStream with the link in the description, you'll also get a Nebula subscription for free. And just to give you a little more information, that Nebula subscription is not a trial, it's free for as long as you're a CuriosityStream member. Once you use the link or code Mary Spender, you'll get a welcome email from Nebula giving you access. So, for a limited time only, CuriosityStream is offering 26% off their annual plans, which is less than $15 a year for CuriosityStream and Nebula, which is a pretty amazing bundle. So, if you click on the link in the description or go to curiositystream.com/Mary Spender, it helps me and my fellow creators keep on doing what we're doing. It really helps more than you know.